Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Growthwell podcast, where we explore the art of balancing professional growth and personal well-being. Special thanks to my sponsors at Market Scale for making this happen. Today, I've got a fantastic guest for you today. He is a multiple-time founder. He's a family man, and I just discovered he's a fly fisherman. So we share lots in common. Can't wait for you to meet Jake Hadden today. So welcome, Jake.
Josh, I'm really glad to be here. I really appreciate what you're doing for the community with the Growthwell podcast. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just for our audience, tell us a little bit about you. Give us the 30-second rundown of who Jake Hadden is.
Absolutely. So in 30 seconds, born and raised in LaGrange, Georgia, which is a small town south of Atlanta. Went to the University of Georgia. On the very first day of college, I met my future co-founder, Max. And then about a year after that, I met my future wife, Erin. So University of Georgia was a great place for me. I'm a big Bulldog. Fast forward to like 2015, I started my first company. It's called Digital Crafts. We grew it for about 6.5 years, ended up selling that company. And I just started my new venture, which I'm excited to share with the audience here, called Engineer Up. Outside of work, I have a wonderful family, married for 8 years, been together with Erin for 16. We've just been married longer than we've been dating, which is really cool. And I have two wonderful
children. That's
a
milestone. I love it.
Yep. So 2 wonderful children, 4-year-old and 2-year-old.
That's awesome. We call those the crazy days, right? I think we had a better name for it than that, but it's leaving me right now. But 4-year-old and 2-year-old, you're running a lot and starting a business on top of that. That's that's not for the weary or the faint of heart for sure. Which is, I think we have a lot of people in our audience that are similar. So to me, most people that are crazy enough to raise kids or chase a dream and start a business and, keep themselves sane, have a purpose or a why. They can fairly clearly identify what's driving them. So I'm really curious for you, Jake, what's driving you?
It's a great question. And I will say the first company I started, I did not have children. So we launched Digital Crafts the same week I got married. So I quit my job, full-time job, and started that company. And would I be able to do this again without having a successful exit with young kids? I don't know. That's a really good question. Now, for me, what drives me in my new business, Engineer Up, is helping others, and I'll explain why really briefly. But at Digital Crafts, we are a for-profit education school, and there's a lot of negativity that comes along with for-profit education. But what I was so passionate about, what got me so excited, is when students graduated our program and got a job, and it changed their career, it changed their family's future. That just really excited me. And so I'm really taking that passion and pushing it forward to Engineer Up, where we're building a leading IT consulting firm where I get to bring on strong individuals and give them a strong career. And then we have a mission as well that I'm happy to go through as well. It's our social impact mission, where I'll just share it. But for every 10 consultants we place at a client, we give one person a job. So right now we have 30 consultants, and we've given 2 people a job, and I have budget for 1 more. But it's similar to the Tom Shoes model. It's for every 10 consultants we place, we will give one person a job.
I love that. And I think more entrepreneurs could think that way, because there's such a positive and ongoing impact to that sort of giving somebody a hand up, not a hand out, sort of, so to speak. And I'm not getting political on that, but just like, if you can create something that helps somebody, especially somebody who really has the desire to create a better life for themselves, if you create a platform for that to happen, then you have a ripple effect in the world that is substantial.
Absolutely.
And, I shared with you what I'm working on with Copy and AI. We're doing a lot of the same thing, where we're helping be a catalyst for people to be better salespeople and better salespeople make more money and create a better life for themselves. And if they're selling a product that, is helping the world, then they put more of that product out there. And so it's cyclical and it ripples. And I love that.
Absolutely.
And it helps me get going too. So I think finding that purpose is super, super important. Now, this one is one I struggle with. For people who are purpose driven like you, I find many of them have to either create routines and rituals and habits, either daily or weekly, that keep them focused and driving towards that purpose. Some of us, like me, are not good at that naturally. Others, it comes naturally. So I'd love to explore, what are your habits and routines, either daily or regularly, that really help keep you in your center?
Absolutely. And I love sharing this because it's had such a positive impact on my life for the last few years. And I do like to say that I'm not perfect with my routine, but 70.
I don't think anybody is.
Yeah, I mean, but 75% of the time, I do it. And if I look back over the last 5 years, I've made a lot of gains because of that consistency. And so there's really two routines or frameworks that I put in place. And I learned this from a guy named Warren Rustin. And he's a well-known entrepreneur within like the EO, YPO circles. And so I had the opportunity to hear Warren speak several years ago, and it changed my life drastically. The first is my journaling morning routine. And it just sounds so cliche because everybody does it, but it's called 1-10-10-10. And so the 1 means for the first second when you're up, you swing your feet onto the side of the bed and you ask yourself, why are you on this earth? And it's really cool to do it because the answer changes, right? It may be your wife's birthday and you're like, well, I'm on this earth to support her or celebrate her.
Yeah.
Or your daughter's birthday, I'm here to support her and make sure she has a great day. Or it may be business focused, like I am going to hire that person. So it's really cool to see how the answer changes over time. So it's 1-10-10-10. And after you get up, you do 10 minutes of thinking about what you're grateful for, 10 minutes of reading something positive, and then 10 minutes of journaling. Warren says to journal something positive or what you're grateful for. I find I just kind of journal whatever I want to write down. I don't put too much pressure on me. Sometimes I'm writing about family, what I'm grateful for, or sometimes I'm writing about business or my growth plans at business, in the business. So that's a routine I've been doing for, I would say 5 or 6 years now. And I started out, I was doing it just Monday through Friday. And I was like, nope, I'm doing it. I take off Sunday.
Yeah.
And I also do it on vacation. Like if I don't do it during vacation, I've found that I get thrown off. So, go ahead.
Isn't it interesting though, how those seemingly small routines, especially with consistency, really can make a positive impact? I was holding this book up while you were talking because it's a 5-year journal and you write 2 to 3 sentences a day. And each page has a date, and then you go through the year and then you start it over the next year. And I'm in my 2nd year, and seeing how far I've come and how some things didn't matter at all that were really bothering me. They turned out not to matter. And then other things became huge and I had no idea. And so for me, it helps keep that perspective. But, I think it's funny and interesting how those very little habits with consistency can really add up.
Yeah. So it's something that has really made a positive impact on me. I have a few Moleskine journals that are filled up, and I need to go back and read some of the prior years, but they sit in my library on the shelf, and I guess anybody could go in there and read them. I do write it in a way that if somebody to pick it up and read it, it's okay. So it is mostly positive and nothing, too personal. The other thing that I'd like to share, or I'd love to share with your audience, is something I learned from Warren, and it's more like a framework about how to live your life with intention. And this is something I've really been doing. Warren published his book maybe 3 years ago. I've probably read it 7 times since then.
Wow. What's it called?
It's called The Leader Within Us.
Okay.
And look, it could come across pretty cliche to anyone, but when I read it, when I heard him speak, it really resonated with me at that time. And so Warren talks about like a 3-tiered framework. And number one is having a clarity of vision.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to know where you're going in life, you have to have a vision for it. So
Yeah.
I've written down my vision. I took 2 or 3 weeks and really defined that. And once you have your clarity of vision, you have what's called certainty of intent. So it's just making sure that every action you take throughout the day gets you one step closer to your vision. And it sounds super simple. It is super simple. The tough part about it is being consistent. And then I'll say the third prong to this framework is what a lot of other frameworks miss, in my opinion, but it's called the power of values. And so what that is doing is ensures every action you take towards your vision, you do it in a way that you're proud of and that you can fall back on your values. You're right. You don't want to build a big business and sell it for a ton of money. If you do it in the wrong way, you'll look back and regret that. So yeah, it's setting your vision, having, intention, and making sure you do that with a strong set of values. And I've really put this framework into place, almost religiously over the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's super powerful. I think I do pieces of that as far as exploring and getting clarity on what I'm doing. I find that it can feel exhausting at times to be like every minute must be intentional. And I think that I sometimes took that too literally and had to adjust as I got older, understanding that like if the day is intentional and I moved the business or the mission or my family forward in some way, then that's a win. That's a win, and that's that consistency. And it doesn't have to be every single minute, at least for me, that is lived with intentionality, because sometimes we need to rest. And I think rest and recovery is highly underrated, especially for entrepreneurs and business people that are building something that'll outlast them.
Mm-hmm.
So have you always been that way, or did you like hit a point with your first startup where you're like, whoa, I need to have more discipline? I mean, clearly this speech that you heard in the book kind of were a catalyst for some of the frameworks, but have you always had sort of the intention, or was that the moment?
I think I had a few changes going on in my life during that time, to where that the speech that he gave, not just the 1-10-10-10, but pretty much everything he mentioned really just resonated, hit home with me. And so I think from that point, I've really been living approaching life differently.
Yeah.
And I try my best to stay on that track today for sure. But I will say, we built Digital Crafts. My last business, it was a wonderful thing. We had a team of close to 70 employees, and we served lots of customers and had a really positive impact on them. And then we did sell the business to a larger company, and then I had to spend time working there for 2 years. And I think it was really during that period, reflecting on that entire experience, where it's made me almost double down on this framework and just say, okay, there's a lot of things in life that I do want to achieve, whether it's for my family, professionally, with my friend group, or just, challenging myself to take the next level. So reflecting back on Digital Crafts and then saying, hey, I need to double down on this framework. There's really something here.
Yeah.
If I can be consistent with it, I can really achieve some cool things.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I encourage any listeners to start with the framework that just makes sense, or make one up. But I think the consistency is the more important thing. In fact, today I went straight into taking my daughter to school, and straight from there to a meeting, straight from there into another meeting. And like literally leading up to this podcast recording, I was like, what is wrong with me? Because I was just all over the place and not feeling myself. And I didn't start my day correctly. Looking backwards and reflecting, I should have probably gotten up a little earlier and started my day in a more grounded sense. And it probably would have had at least a calmer throughput. It's been a good day, but it was I felt very anxious in everything I was doing. And so, yeah, I think kind of being proactive about that is interesting. Now, also, I find that people are really important, right? So you mentioned your friend group, you've mentioned your wife. What are the things that you have in place that kind of help you recognize if you start to get off balance, if you start to get out of sorts? I find that those of us who run hard at whatever we're chasing don't realize we're off balance as soon as the people around us do.
Right. That's a good point. I've never really thought about purposefully setting up a support system in that manner. So it's a really good question. Just naturally, I think my wife is maybe the first one to recognize when something's off and sit me down and maybe course correct me.
Yeah.
But other than that, I have my father, my mom, all very close brothers, and, I have 2 or 3 friends that would just do anything to support me. And so I do have a really strong network, friends and family. And I have to say I rely pretty heavily on that.
Yeah, that's good. I find that's most people's answer, right? They either have a strong coworker or a spouse or, a parent, something like that, that just recognizes when, hey, something's not right. Are you okay? And I think my wife is that for me, but I've also tried to start being that for others and being brave enough to, if I'm close enough, say, how you doing? And, most people will give you I'm fine. And that's okay. But some people might need somebody to talk to. So maybe I can be that for somebody, and so I try to do that without overcommitting myself. Cause obviously there's plenty of things that have to get done.
Slope.
It can be, and I'm well aware of that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like the right thing to do.
I will say what I've noticed throughout the last few years is if I ever am feeling off, it's usually because I've not done my routine. And
yes,
my routine includes reviewing my vision and goals that I set. And I try to do that daily. And I actually looked at them this morning and I was like, man, I hadn't looked at these in a few weeks and I need to change them. But yeah, it's normally and so within my vision and goals, it's like 4 pillars. It's family, personal health, business, and then I forget what the last tier is at the moment. But I even have goals in there like teach my daughter how to ride a bike, take my daughter
that's fun
to swim lessons, you play soccer with my son.
Mm-hmm.
So the minute I stop reviewing that every morning is the minute I've stopped doing those things during the day.
Yeah.
Because it's just so easy to get caught up in work and everything that's going on in life that you don't remember to take the time to focus on the priorities you set. So every morning I try to remind myself of those so I make time for them.
Yeah. So you just mentioned realizing you're off balance. So I'm curious, do you have, besides just, okay, Jake, take a breath, you need to get back in your routine, are there other go-tos that you have to kind of bring yourself back into balance? Because you're an entrepreneur and a father, life's going to throw you curveballs, maybe on the daily, right? So what do you do when things are just kind of not going well and you need to reset?
That's a great question. I really do 2 things. I think if I need a short, quick fix, I go for a run or go to the gym. So like yesterday morning, my son woke up at 5. So my alarm goes up at 5:30. So he woke me up at 5. So I wasn't able to do my journaling routine. And I played with him from 5 to 8. My nanny got there at 8. And that was fun, but it also can be tiring. Yeah. And so immediately after my nanny got there, he's like, you know what? I'm not going to go to work right now. I'm just going to go for a run.
Yeah.
So went for the run, went to the gym, back on my game. Other than that, it'd be fly fishing. So I do try to go fly fishing once a month. It's about to start back up because it's really hard to go fishing here in the summer. It's just too hot.
Yeah. It's so hot.
Come September through the end of the year, I definitely will go once a month. And that's I do it during the week. So I take a day off of work. I don't take away from my family. I take a day off of work and go. And that's a really good way for me to reset.
That's awesome. I need to take that up. Because that's the reason that I haven't fly fished as much in the past years. It's something that I'm very passionate about too, is that it was taking time away from my family. Now, as I was mentioning right before this, I did teach my girls to fly fish a couple weeks ago in Montana. So I'm hoping that some of the Saturdays coming up in the fall, I can get them out there with me. That would be
Absolutely
amazing. So we'll see. But it definitely got me excited for that. I think getting out in nature is so important, and exercise is so important. It's amazing what a 20-minute run will do to reset your mind.
Absolutely.
Or even like a 15-minute yoga practice or something like that to just sort of, put you back in the zone or get you out of the bad zone you're in, whatever it is. I love that too. And I tend to be, we talked about this a little bit, but I tend to be, I love endurance sports, because there's a couple of reasons. One, the training that it takes to do endurance is that consistency. And so it keeps me on task and it gives me a big goal to kind of strive for as I'm training. Right. But it also is like every time I've done some kind of endurance event, it's been something I've never done before and frankly didn't think I could do. And so there's a certain sense of accomplishment of like, hey, if you put your mind to something, you can do it as long as you're willing to work for it and consistently work for it. And I think that was the biggest lesson I learned, right? Is that you always hear if you can do anything you put your mind to, but very few people talk about the work that goes into it and the planning and the consistency that leads to the achievement that you're after. And that's something I've taken away from those. So you're a triathlete, right? I mean,
I've done a half Ironman. Or I've attempted
that checks
two,
the box to
and
me.
I've completed one. So yeah, I've done that, and then marathon was my big goal this year. So I ran a marathon earlier this year, and I'm like really attracted to this race out in Leadville where they do a 100-mile race.
Leadville 100 on foot or on a mountain bike? Which one?
Either one.
They have them both.
I know. I'm attracted to both of them, but I'm really scared to even think about it because I know how much work you'd have to put in to do it. It took a lot for me to do a 26-mile run, and it hurt after. And so to do 100, it's like, I know I could do it, but man, that would take a lot of work.
So Leadville is kind of a bucket list thing for me. So we'll have to take this offline a little bit and maybe scheme. But yes, I'm a nerd enough to like when the mountain bike race was a few weeks ago. I mean, I watched almost the entire thing in stories on Instagram. That's the only way they broadcast. And I was glued to Instagram stories watching the leaders grind through it. It was pretty awesome. So yeah. So okay, so I'm curious, if you were talking to the younger you, or the younger you is listening to this podcast, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to think through how to really passionately pursue a career or building a business, but not let that totally take over their entire life and stay balanced in some way? What would you say to that person?
That's a tough question to answer. So I just speaking from my experience, with my first company, I was just at a place in my life where I could work a lot of hours. And it didn't necessarily take away from anything. I did have a serious girlfriend, then fiance, then I was married during that process, but she was very supportive. And she also had a career. And so if I was working late, there's a good chance she was working late too. And so I didn't have to necessarily think about taking away from family, and burnout's never really been an issue for me. But now that I'm building this new company and I do have a family, I'm very, very much trying to build it in a different way. And I think it goes back to Warren's framework, where I've really set a vision for my life with goals, and those aren't just business related. They're very much family. And so, when I go to work from 9 to 5, I'm working on all of those goals, personal, professional, the business. And so, and it's just being dedicated and consistent every single day.
Yeah.
Just for like some tactical advice outside of that, I'm a big fan of a guy named Dan Martell. And Dan published this book called Buy Back Your Time. And I read this after Digital Crafts. I wish I would have read it during Digital Crafts, but his philosophy is kind of like, as a CEO and leader of the company, when you can buy back your time, it's a worthwhile investment. So if you catch yourself doing administrative tasks all day, the first hire you should make is not an executive sales rep. It's an administrative teammate to take a lot of that stuff off your plate. So when I'm building Engineer Up right now, I've been taking Dan Martell's approach. And my first hire was an administrative assistant, Nina, who's taken a lot of stuff off my plate. My next hire was a recruiter, because I was spending all my time recruiting for talent. And so she took that off my plate. And now I just hired a sales executive. So I really do try to examine how much time I'm focused on certain areas of the business. And when it kind of sucks energy from me and it's not something I'm passionate about, I do try to bring somebody on the team who is passionate about it. And that's their number one skill set. So that's the approach I'm taking now. And that might be the advice I give my younger self or someone else who's about to go on this journey.
Yeah, try to buy back your time. I started buying back my time in the same way. We're not quite at a year, but it has really changed a lot for me in the things that I'm able to focus on and ultimately my happiness. Shout out to my team at Belay here in Atlanta who helps me with that. But it's amazing. It's also a discipline, right? What should you let go of? And also, can you asking that question, like, can I teach somebody else to do it to my level of excellence or expectation? And I was surprised early on to find how much I could do, or I could delegate, and then, how much that freed me up to do what in theory only I can do, because it's in my unique skill set that I've been given. And that's a powerful journey that I think so many people don't take soon enough. For sure.
And I still catch myself doing things. I'm like, why? This is something that I could delegate and someone else would do it much better than me. And I probably shouldn't be doing it anyways, because it's kind of responsibility of someone else. So I've learned that through the hard way. At Digital Crafts, I micromanaged the team a lot. I did a lot of tasks that should have been delegated down. And when you do that, it kind of disrupts the company culture, right? Because when you do a task as a leader that someone else was hired to do, they feel like you don't trust them. And so it's important to take a step back and think through, what you're doing as a leader to ensure that you continue to build that culture, build trust, and focus on the right things.
Leadership is such a learned skill in so many ways. Like, you can have somebody who's a natural leader, but the nuance of that and how you treat people and how you delegate and how you lead is such, we could start a whole podcast on leadership. I'm sure there's incredible ones out there. So listeners, drop it in the comments if you know a great leadership podcast. But part of our growth and our professional growth that we're all pursuing is constantly learning to be better at whatever it is we do. And leadership is definitely one of those at this stage in your career.
Right. And so one thing I've learned is leaders look different or can look different from one another. I'm not the kind of leader that can walk into a room and command everyone's attention and, say a funny joke, get everybody looking at me and laughing and hey, follow me on this journey. But I am someone who can walk in a room and over the course of a month, build trust with everybody in that room and have them align with my mission. So that's the approach. The approach I take to leadership is just what works well for me. And I think if you just stay honest to yourself and honest with others, it kind of falls into place.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So we'll close with this. What are you excited about? What's next for you? Obviously, you're building this company. Where do you see that taking you, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, so engineer up is really straightforward. My goal is to build this to 250 consultants and exit the business. And so I think that'll take, 5 to 10 years. And so that's my goal for business. And it's pretty straightforward. I wrote it down, I communicated with the team, and that's where we're headed. We want to hire only the best talent and support our clients really well and get to a certain point and then hand it off to a larger company that can take it to the next level. In terms of me personally, what I'm most excited about is something I've actually never done before, and it's investing in my network. And so, the advice that you always hear from people that are older than you is like, hey, you want to surround yourself with people that push you, right? That challenge you and push you and want you to become the best form of yourself. And I wrote that down as a goal. It's part of my vision. It's part of my goals. And so I've joined these entrepreneur groups. I've tried to surround myself with founders, not just entrepreneurs and founders, but founders that have built and sold a business at least once. And I've gotten into those groups. And one thing I'm doing that I'm really excited about is actually investing hard dollars into it. So I'm going on believe it or not, a heli skiing trip in Canada with about, I think it's 16 business founders. And I'm not just any business founder, it's founders that have had a business, sold it, and are on to their next or their fourth. And who knows what'll come of it. But I'm really just trying to take that advice you hear from, the older men or women in your life, like to challenge yourself, surround yourself with better people, and actually put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. We could all learn so much from you. I can't wait to hear about your heli skiing and maybe wet a line with you sometime soon. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Josh. Thanks for what you're doing for the community. And I was glad I could be a guest today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a wrap, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for telling others about the Growthwell podcast. And I just really appreciate the way this community is growing. Thanks again to my friends at Market Scale for making it happen. And until next time, go out there and pursue growth well.